Alrighty, looks like we got a question. Hello from Florida. Welcome in from Florida. I'm in California right now. So it's technically not morning. It's technically afternoon for you then, I believe, if you're in Florida. Welcome in. 2 p.m. Yeah. It is the afternoon. Awesome. Well, if we have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. I've got a couple, I guess you could call them FAQs that we're kind of looking at that we can go through. Okay. So the first one is I want to add new contact roles. How do I add, edit, or remove contact roles? So once we get into our open to close account, we're going to head over to our 3-line icon. We'll head down to our hammer icon and get into filters. Once we're into filters, it's going to default to the contact roles. This is also where we can get to our file roles as well. So if you guys need to change or update your file roles, you can go here. If you need to do so for your contact roles, you can do so here. One caveat with file roles, if you guys are new clients and you're kind of like just getting started with customizing your file roles and getting that set up, what I want you to take notice is I'm going to go ahead and do buyer. What I want you guys to take notice is that here for our buyer role, we only have one. We don't need a buyer 1, buyer 2, buyer 3, buyer 4. We only need one buyer. Open to close, the system, the way that it's set up, the way that it works is that it will recognize if you have multiple people with the same contact role. So if we've got 3 buyers, me, Kelly, and our coworker, Jana, we're all 3 of us are going to be buyers on a property. We're going to purchase this house together. It will list out our names. It'll say, hello, Hannah, Kelly, and Jana. It knows that these are 3 people who are buyers. So just keep that in mind when you're editing your contact roles. You don't necessarily need to have it set up where it says, buyer 1, buyer 2, seller 1, seller 2, seller agent 1, buyer agent 1, buyer agent 2, that kind of thing. We really only need the one version of it. And as long as you make sure that that role is assigned to all of the buyers, it's going to list them out, right? To edit them, we're going to click into the space. When it turns purple, we're editing it. When we press enter on our keyboard and it goes from purple to white, that means that it's saved. We'll notice that that is something that's like across the board with an open to close. Sometimes it'll go from gray or from purple to gray. Sometimes it'll go from purple to white. It just depends on the color coordination of it, right? So in this case, it's a white background, so it's going to go from purple to white. If it was a gray background, it'd go from gray. Oh, sorry. It'd go from purple to gray. Okay. If we need to add in new ones, we're going to add in new ones here and we'll select add. Other than that, these little purple stars next to them make it so that it's either available or not available in the portals. These portals they include the agent portal, the syncing over to follow-up boss, showing up in the buyer portal or into the seller portal, so like a client portal role. Do we want to share this information with whoever we need to share it with? That's kind of what you want to think of. Do we want to share this contact with people external from open to close? Just something to keep in mind. Let me know if there's any follow-ups on that one. The only other thing that I probably have you guys take a look at is going to be contact businesses, where if you guys want to enter in any of the businesses that you work with, let's say you work with a bunch of different people at one business and it's easier for you to just mass assign those businesses to that group of people. This is where you can add in that business and have it as a business that you can select. Your contact groups are going to be the different groups that you might work with. Contact lead sources are going to be all the leads that you work with, and contact tags are the tags that you might need to put on specific, party members or people or that you might work with and different contacts they might work with. Cool. I see which account I am in now, so I'm going to log out really quickly. I'm going to log into a different account. All right, looks like we do have a question. Looking to learn about FUB to OTC via API, as well as Dotloop to OTC via API. Awesome. So first things first, whenever we set up that follow-up boss API, we're going to want to get down. First of all, make sure that you're logged in as the owner of the open to close account. So right now, this is who I'm logged in as, right? So I'm the owner of the open to close account. I don't have the ability to delete myself. I don't have the ability to update my permissions, and I don't have the ability to impersonate myself. That means you're logged in as the owner. That's one thing. Make sure you're logged in as the owner. Next, we're going to head down to that apps and API underneath our gear icon. We're going to go over to Follow Up Boss. We're going to click on Manage Profiles, and the API key that you're going to put in here is going to be the owner's API key. So you should be typing in owner, and then here we should be putting in the owner's API key. Okay. I usually suggest using the owner's API key because when we use the owner's API key, we don't have to enter in anyone else's. There's been a couple of different updates to our Follow Up Boss API. We used to have it before where you'd have to have, an API set up for every single user on their user profile. Now we have it where you can set up one. So the owner, the person who has the most permission. And then what we can do is we can go over here and we can look at that owner API under our current connections, and we can give access to everyone on the team. So everyone on the team will be able to use that owner API. They'll have access to all of the agents. They'll have access to all of the clients. They'll have access to everything, right? That's usually what I suggest. Make sure that they have access to everything, okay? Now, this is just the first step to get things connected here. Once we've made sure to select who we need to select here, we're going to go back to API connections. We're going to close. We're going to exit out of our gear icon. So exit out of our settings. We're going to go down to organization and users. We're going to go to permissions. Okay. So this is the permissions for each one of these additional users that you might have on your team. We're going to click on permissions and we're going to look for Follow-Up Boss. So here underneath API tokens, we want to make sure that Follow-Up Boss profiles is enabled. This is going to give that particular person access to use that integration you just gave them access to, okay? If this is not enabled on them, they are not going to be able to use that access, okay? So it's going to be two parts. We want to make sure that this is turned on for them, and we're going to want to make sure that underneath that API that they have a connection to it as well, okay? Once that's all done, once we have those things set up and those are connected, we can then go to a property. Let me see if I have a property that's like not connected just yet. Nope. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go to this one and I'm going to disconnect it. That way you guys can see what it looks like fresh. Okay. So this is a fresh property. We just got it in. It's a buyer under contract. Let's say we just filled out that intake form. The property just came in. I just approved it. Okay. When you are done approving that intake form, when you're done bringing in that property, it's at the very first step that you're going to take. You're going to go over to that little Follow-Up Boss icon. You're going to select it, and it's going to take you to this page. You might, by default, when you click on the property, it's probably going to show you your tasks. So go up to that Follow-Up Boss icon or click underneath the More tab and go to Follow-Up Boss here. Either one works. Once we're on there, we're going to click on Connect APIs, and we're going to select that owner API. We're going to say Add. We don't need to worry about agent or team members or anyone else's. We're specifically focusing on owner. We'll say close. Here underneath contact sync, each one of these has their own kind of disclosure on what they do. Your contact sync allows you to sync emails, notes, text messages, and fields over into that Follow-Up Boss profile. The emails, notes, and text messages are going to go into that Follow-Up Boss account underneath the contact that you select as a note, right? In that middle column on that Follow-Up Boss profile. The fields are going to sync with the fields that are on the left-hand side underneath. I don't even know. I wish I could show you guys, but I think I'm still locked out of the Follow Boss account right now. There was just some permissions that have been updated and I haven't gotten an opportunity to get with the person who owns the Follow Boss account to get that authentication code set up. But the idea is that you can sync over some details, okay? Usually what I see people doing with this, with the contact sync, right? Here, when they go and they search for their person, I'm going to search for Hannah. She's going to be my buyer or my seller. I'm going to add her to this. The idea is that you want to be able to share the emails, the text messages, and the notes, right? That's typically what I see people doing. They'll share that data over there. Anything that they're sending from open to close, they want it to show up in Follow-Up Boss. This is what I'm showing right here, okay? Now for notes, the great thing is that if the note is excluded, so I'm going to say excluded note and say add. Here, if we see that this little dark exclude button is selected, that note is not going to share. If we unselect that, Now the note is going to share. So it's going to push over through that follow up boss integration. So just keep that in mind. There's certain things that even though we gave them permission and we said sync all of the notes, there's certain notes that won't because they're meant to be excluded. They're meant to be private. So just keep that in mind. For follow up boss for the field data, I'm just going to click on sync fields and I'm going to just choose an API mapping template so I can show you. These are the fields within follow up boss that I can sync with. It's a toss up, right? Usually the custom fields that you're adding into follow up boss are going to be things like kids' first names, anniversaries, oh geez, what have I seen? A lot of personal information. That's usually what I'm seeing there is like personal information for the buyer or personal information for the seller or personal information for that lead. Technically, with an open to close, we don't really track that information, right? I mean, you could keep it in here, but we don't really do that. Our job is to make sure that you keep on top of that transaction, okay? Our job is to make sure that you keep on top of what happens after you go under contract, not keeping up with the relationship that you might have. So, sometimes I see people using their fields, sometimes they don't use their fields. If you still want to share some of this data points over with your agent, right? If you still want that to show up in their account, then what I would suggest using is not the field data, but I'd actually suggest going down and using the widget. So I'm going to go down to owner, I'm going to search for Hannah again, and I'm going to add on that widget. The reason I like the widget better is because the widget can allow me to share a couple different data points that I really like. When we say we're going to set the role, this is where I want you to think, okay, it doesn't matter if it's a buyer or a seller. What matters is what information do I want to share with my agents? I have a FUB agent and a limited FUB agent. When I click on manage roles, it's going to allow me to review these two roles. For FUB agent, they have permission to everything. Okay. So here's all the available permissions. These are all the things that can show up in that widget within Follow Up Boss. I've given them permission to see everything. The limited agent only has permission to see the timeline, see the documents. I wouldn't even give the ability to upload, just download the documents. If I want to, I could say I want them to have access to the contacts as well, or I could say I want them to have access to the details. It just depends. Timeline, though, is going to be this clock icon up here at the top. And this is not a good example because it doesn't have any dates with it. Let's go back over to this one. So timeline is going to be this. So they're going to see all of the due dates that you currently have scheduled. They'll see the times that are associated with it if you need to. If we're talking about the details, that's going to be sharing these details here. So transaction details, the dates, listing details, it's going to be showing commission, it's going to be showing intake questions. And if there are any archive fields that it needs to share, it'll share those as well. So that would be kind of like if we wanted to share those two. I'm just going to go back over to it on a different property. Manage rules. Click on that limited access. And then also documents. They'll have the ability to view and download documents. So that's typically what I see. I see people going and they're going like, okay, I'm going to add, Hannah, and limited access is fine. My agents really only need to see the timeline. They may need to see some of the details and they need to download the documents, but I don't need them worrying about tasks. I don't need them worrying about, contacts. I don't need them worrying about, any of those other permissions. I want them to be hyper focused on just these three things. Okay. Sorry, my allergies have been really bad recently. The other widget or the other tool that we have for that integration that we can use is the deal sync. If we wanted to sync with deals within Follow Up Boss. So usually I ask, are you using deals within Follow Up Boss? That's what I want you to think first. If you are using deals within Follow Up Boss, then you can use the deal sync within Open to Close. You can connect the two to make it easier to update different stages. When that sync is connected, I believe I have it connected on this property. So let me just go back to a different property, deal sync. Cool. When it is connected here, you're going to see these are the fields that have been mapped. So if we scroll down, these are the fields that are mapped and pushed over. We can add it to specific contacts. So I can say like, I want this to show up. I want Hannah to be associated with this one. And then here underneath Follow Up Boss deal users, this is who you're selecting, who needs to see access to this deal or get access to this deal kind of thing. So here's, like us just making sure that everyone has permission. They can see what they need to see with it. If we scroll back up, let's say we make a change to this. I go over to contract status and I change it. Here you can see that this is the Follow Up Boss deal. So I'm going to say it's closed now. And I'm going to update that deal and I'm going to mark it as closed. And I'm going to update this check mark. Once I update that, it's going to update that. It's going to ask us, do we want to do anything with the property? We're going to go ahead and say close for now. Let me go ahead and just refresh. There we go. We can see that stage now is updated to closed. So if you guys are deal users and you want to make it so that when the TC finds out that it's closed, that they can update that for that particular deal, so that if the follow up boss agent is looking in follow up boss, they can see that that deal has been marked as closed. Here you can see this is a quick way for us to like update the deal. We can also update any of the details if we need to as well. That's the main points behind the follow up boss integration. Any questions? Cool. The other part with the follow-up boss, awesome. Yeah, yeah. It's a really cool tool. The other part with follow-up boss that we have, and this is why I said we're going to set up that agents, not the agents, the owners API within your open and close account, is because we can also use webhooks. If you guys are wanting to push over um, tasks from open to close into follow up boss, and then you want to receive a notification that that task has been completed in follow up boss, we can use the webhooks to push over tasks. So you can see here that I've got this one that says there are 7 tasks that need to be added to follow up boss. Click here. If I click here, it's going to show me these are the 7 tasks. These are the tasks, like kind of details with them, the date that it's due, what type of task it is, the time that it's due, and then if there were any reminders. This is the name of that particular task. And if I scroll down to the bottom, I'm going to select my API. So the owner, that's the one that I want. The follow-up boss user, I can select the person that I know is going to be checking off those tasks. The webhooks listener, this is something that we'll go and we'll take a look at just a minute in the back end. But this is where we're going to say, we want that update when they've checked it off, we want it to update us. And then this is the contact that I want those tasks to be associated with. So I'm going to search for Hannah. I'm going to select her again, and I'm going to say submit. Once we push over those tasks, it's going to go through, it's going to set up and push those tasks into Follow Up Boss. So if you're a Follow Up Boss user, you should be able to log into Follow Up Boss and see those tasks underneath that task area. Okay. When it gets checked off, it's going to come back into open and close as the little webhook change icon here. So this little icon on the task is going to turn red, and you're going to get notified that you need to go and you need to check it. You'll also get a notification up here with the bell icon as well. So we'll click on that webhook change. Here you can see these are 15 completed ones, and these are the tasks that were completed previously. If any new tasks came in, they would come in as new. But you'd be able to see when they checked it off. You'd be able to see, okay, cool, awesome. They did their part. Let me check it off on my side, or let me complete my side. Now, to make sure that we have the webhook set up correctly, we're going to go back down to our gear icon into our apps and APIs. We're going to go to webhooks. This part is pretty simple. We're going to go to follow up boss. We're going to choose our owner API. Owner API, websites follow up boss. That's not going to change. Here we can update this to task updated, task completed, task checked off by agent, whatever language you want to use. And then you're going to say you want that event to be that it updates the task, and you're going to say submit. I'm not going to press submit because I already have one created. Once it's been created, these 2 buttons are going to be off. So we want to set it as the property default, and we want to turn that particular API, turn that particular webhook on. Okay. This is going to be the one webhook we're going to be using for all of our properties, regardless of who is assigned to that particular property. And the reason we're doing that is because it's the owner's API. They have ultimate permission within Follow Up Boss to be able to push over tasks, to be able to receive that check that it's been completed, and to send that information back into open and close. We don't need to assign it to any follow-up boss user. We can leave that as none because, again, there's a long list here of different users that we might have, and you guys might have a ton. We don't need to set that. We just need to say set as property default and turn that on. Now, in the back end, when we're looking at our task templates, we can set up some of those tasks to be default. These are the ones I want to send over to follow-up boss. So we're going to head over to our hammer icon, into templates, head down to task templates. We'll locate our task template. I'm just going to go ahead and grab this one. Not this one. Sorry. Here we go. We'll go to, I think my seller one's fine. All right. So let's say there's certain tasks on the seller side that we want to send over. We're going to click on this little arrow here and expand these tasks. And then you're going to see follow-up boss task prompt. Okay. When we select that, that's when we can set the type of task it is. This is a follow-up. We can set the time that it's due at 12 p.m. and we can set the reminder. I want them to know 1 hour before. I want that reminder to go out. And so this is how we're setting up kind of like, this is a task that we would want to push over. Cool. If you guys have more questions about Follow Up Boss, there's a really, really fantastic article that we have regarding like tasks and Follow Up Boss that I really like to kind of like put in your guys' face. Follow Up Boss tasks. There we go. How to assign a task to Follow Up Boss. I really, really like this one because it talks about connecting your API. And it talks about how to do that, and talks about your permissions. And then it talks about how to create your webhook. And then it talks about how to create a task template, right? Go to your task templates and create that option here. And then it'll show you how to go into your defaults and settings, update your webhooks listener, and then make sure that you've applied that task template, or maybe that task template already gets applied through your intake form. It just allows you to go through and understand the steps that you need to take and what does it look like when the task has been completed and it comes back into open to close. So this one's a really, 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 really great article that just kind of goes over everything. Yeah, it's a super cool tool. Like I think this is one of the coolest tools that we have. Awesome. So if there's no follow-up questions, I'll go ahead and switch over and start talking about Dotloop now. Looks like we're good. Cool. So again, Dotloop, same exact thing when it comes to permissions. We're going to go down to our gear icon. We're going to get into our apps and APIs. And we're just going to make sure that we have our Dotloop profile connected. Now with Dotloop, Dotloop is one-to-one. Okay. So if you're logged in as a user, you need to connect your Dotloop account. You're logged in as a different user, you need to connect their Dotloop account. You're logged in as a third user. That third user needs to be connected to their Dotloop account. Okay. So here we only have disconnect and reconnect. We don't have the ability to look at profiles or update different profiles or see other profiles. It's just connecting one-to-one to that Dotloop profile. Once we have that connected there, we can go to the property. I usually suggest people connect to their Dotloop after they have the property created into open to close, but it just kind of depends on your process and when you do certain things. So for example, when we're looking at this, right? If you guys have it that you need to create your Dotloop loop, or you need to create your loop within Dotloop, sorry, you need to create your loop within Dotloop at the beginning of, like the moment that you go under contract, and you need to create your loop within there. Then I would say create your loop within Dotloop. Once you have the property within open to close, you're going to go to your more tab. You're going to go to Dotloop and you're going to link it to that property. Okay. That's if you already have the loop created. It's something a part of your process. The moment that you need to start building out contracts or documents, you need to have that Dotloop account created. Create it within Dotloop. Now, if you're like, I don't really need to do that, Hannah. Like, I only really need the Dotloop after I've already entered in the transaction within open to close. If you are doing it after the fact, so you entered it into Dotloop, you entered in the transaction into open to close and that Dotloop hasn't been created, you can export the property. So here you can choose the profile that you want to export it to. We can say next. And then here we can see the values that we're going to sync over from open to close to that Dotloop property. And we can export the property out from open to close and push it into Dotloop. So it really just depends on your flow. Are you wanting it that you need to be able to send over the loop? Like at what point do we need that, right? Is it already created? So we're just connecting it, or has it not been created yet? And so we need to connect it. Going back over to Dotloop, you guys can see here, we can either link it to the property that's already existing in Dotloop, or we can export the property. Now, as far as for connectivity, what does it do? What does it have? How can it do what it needs to do, right? When we have already connected it to Dotloop, we have a couple options with that Dotloop. If we go over to contacts, we can click on API underneath import contacts, and we can import Dotloop contacts. I believe we can also export them. Let me just click on my No. It's under here. Ah, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Add to Dotloop. I haven't looked at Dotloop in quite a number of days, so I might need to get a little bit warmed up with it. But here we can also add them to Dotloop. So this would be exporting them from open to close into Dotloop. So we can start in open to close and then have the contract get autofilled in Dotloop. So it's more of that you can start it in open to close. Okay. When you go under contract, you have that contract because anytime you're using open to close, you should already have a signed contract that you're filling out, that you're entering into open to close. You should already have all those details filled out. But you can push the data over. So if you need to create that loop, you need to use the fields that you have here and create that loop within Dotloop. That's where you're going to be able to export this particular property into Dotloop. It depends on how you're using Dotloop. Some people use it as a just for compliance, where at the end of their process, they sync it to Dotloop and they push over all the documents. Or some people use it where they actually need to start it right at the beginning and they have Dotloop set up so that they can send out documents and have their documents housed there initially, right? So it just depends on which part of the process that you handle. But here again, like I said, we can import, we can export Dotloop contacts, we can go over to documents and we can go to Dotloop documents and we can import documents from Dotloop. We can also export documents to Dotloop. If I select the documents that I want to move, these are the two that I want to get out of here. We can click on options and, oh, I'm sorry. That's not how we're going to do it. I know I'm going to do this again. Is it already connected to Dotloop? This one is. Kelly, help me out. What's the button am I looking for?
I think it, oop.
This one?
Ah. Oh, no, it is working. Sorry. The Dotloop documents, I think.
This is importing.
Oh, then is it going to the regular, the regular Dotloop, because I was just testing this too. The regular, upload to Dotloop. There we go.
It's this one.
It's got to have a file in it.
Yeah, I clicked on this one and it says it has a file, but maybe this isn't oh, okay, it's an image. It's an image. It only allows PDFs. That's right. Because this is a PDF, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Thank you. I was like, I needed Kelly to help me out. I needed to hear her voice to be able to assist me and tell me what to do. Okay, so when we're talking about pushing it over, we're going to click on this little drop down arrow, and here we have the ability to upload that to Dotloop. We're going to be able to select the folder, say upload file. It's going to push that file over from open to close into Dotloop. If we click on Dotloop documents, we should see that file reflected in there. Now we see that document reflected in there immediately. So if I go down and do another one, let's see, this is inspection addendum. Are you a PDF? It is a PDF. So here we'll go ahead and say upload. Choose our folder, upload. Oh, this one might have already been added in. I wonder if I have a different one. Let's do counteroffer. Let's see, Dotloop documents. Okay, there might be something going on with my integration. I know that this is one that we use for testing, but you can also push over documents from open to close into Dotloop as well. Those are the main things that I see people using the Dotloop integration for. After it's connected, it is a relatively live integration in the sense that things are connected. You don't have to go back and like reconnect ever again to sync over contacts or documents. The only thing that you may need to update is auto syncing the property fields with the Dotloop property. If you do not have an API field map selected, that's where you're not going to be able to see like the data, if you've updated any fields here, syncing over to Dotloop. So we just want to make sure that we have an API selected. That way you can make sure that if you update any fields, it does update it within Dotloop. I believe it is a one-way sync, but I would suggest doing some testing. I don't have access to my Dotloop profile because I'm just meant to be within open to close. But for you guys who have access to both, I would check that out and see, is it a two-way sync? When I update something in Dotloop, does it update it with an open to close? Okay. That's what I would check out after you create that property sync. Yeah, no worries. Both of them are really, really cool. And they make using the system a lot easier. Like 100% they make it a lot easier. Oh, great recap. Follow Up Boss users, everyone, OTC users will have owner API in their backend. Yes, exactly. Dotloop, everyone, OTC users will have their own Dotloop in the backend. Yes, exactly. So if a Follow Up Boss user, you're going to get access via that owner API. Every single user on your account is going to get access through that owner API for Follow Up Boss. If you're a Dotloop user, it's one-to-one connection. The one-to-one connection is also something that would happen with Gmail as well. The giving access to everyone, that's going to be something that's available for Brokerment. So if we go down to our permissions and we take a look at this list here, these are the ones that are going to need that access to everyone. So API tokens, this is going to be something that if you're using the API, that's a little different. But Brokerment and Follow Up Boss, those are the ones where you're saying, this is the one API that all of my users need access to. MoveEasy is another thing where you can enable it or disable it within your account. I believe that MoveEasy is now being called LiveEasy. They're just like a utilities assistance company. But I think they do more than utilities. I think they do like home insurance and like a bunch of other stuff as well. MoveEasy is a really cool tool. I think we have I want to say that we have a webinar where we talk about MoveEasy.
For the record, I absolutely loved MoveEasy, and a lot of my clients used it when I was a TC. They loved it too. It was a great, it's kind of like a concierge service and gets them in touch with movers and alarm systems. They can do insurance. They can set up utilities in certain states. I'm in California, and it's a law that the person who is going to be owning the house has to set it up. But in other states, but they'll give you the information for what the utilities are for the address, but they can't set it up, whereas they can in other states. So that was really cool. They can do the cable and set up those appointments though, but not like the electricity and the water and gas. But then they also have, they'll help you move your mail too. There's so much that LiveEasy can do, and they stay with you forever. So it's not just this one house. It's every house moving forward they can transfer it with, and you can have it branded with your team if you want. What else did we like about it? It was just really cool.
Heck yeah. I just added the article where we talk about like the like this is the article, this is the webinar that we had. I added that to the chat for everyone. So if you guys want to grab that and you want to watch it, you're interested in using a system like this or a product like this, like definitely use it. It is something that's active like on the properties. As long as you give them access, your team members, it's a super easy. I think it's a really easy thing to use too, because all you're doing is clicking on MoveEasy and then just like sending it out, and you really don't do anything after that. It's kind of it.
This may have changed, but this may have not changed, but the admin is the only one, or the person who owns the account is the only one who's able to do this. My team users couldn't.
Oh, well, that's because of the access.
Yeah.
Yep. That's because of permissions again. It's because of the permissions down here. If they don't have permission to use it, then they're not going to be able to use it. But the admin, of course, they get access. We don't have to turn that on. So yeah. So we would want to make sure that if you guys want to have that enabled or you want other people to use it, we need to make sure that that is turned on for their permissions. Oh yeah. Great point. Cool. Cool. Let me see. Are there any other? Looks like we don't have any other questions. Definitely feel free to get those into the Q&A if you guys have any other ones. I'm going to look over some more of our FAQs that we have. Ah, I love this one. All right. So let's talk about tasks really quickly. All right. We're going to talk about task templates really fast. I'm going to go down to my buyer main under contract tasks. Okay. When we're looking at tasks, I'm going to click on this drop down. There's a couple things that we want to keep in mind when it comes to our tasks. When we're looking at them, we have the ability to select all, and we have the ability to update their color. Coloring can be used as a filter. If I say that they're all purple now, they're all going to be purple. If I say they're all orange, they're all going to be orange. If I say they're all this light blue color, they're all this light blue color. Okay. Right now they're all gray, and I'm going to leave them as gray. Whenever we're using different color coordination, it's great because on the property, really quickly, you can see the color. You can go gray. Perfect. I know it's my buyer. Blue, perfect, I know it's my buyer. Green, perfect, I know it's my seller, right? That's the idea behind color coordination, is that very quickly it allows your brain to associate what that color means for your guys's process, right? Whether it's red because it's inspections, or yellow because it's HOA, or purple because it's appraisals. That quick association is very helpful for us. It's just a tool that all of us can use. This is just like a little psychology moment for you guys. Color coordination is actually really awesome for that stuff. The next thing with our tasks is we have our tags. When we look at our tags might also have the same kind of color coordination. I would probably go in here and I'd have different color coordination for my tags, but my tags can also be used to filter things. So if I have it tagged as buyer and I use that tag on my task pipeline, I'm only going to see other tasks tagged as buyer. Same thing with our roles. We set up our roles, we add on our roles to these tasks, but if I have that role as admin, I'm only going to see roles that are assigned to that admin. I'm not going to see this role because it's assigned to the email specialist, or this task because this is assigned to the compliance specialist. I'm not going to even see this task because it's assigned to the assistant transaction coordinator, or the email specialist, or the transaction coordinator. Okay. So each one of these tasks has their own roles that might be assigned to them. They also might have their own individual tags that might be assigned to them. They may have their own individual color coordination. The reason that I'm talking about this, the reason that I'm bringing this up and I'm kind of pointing this out for you guys, is that when we're using our task pipeline and we're creating our different filters, this filtering here is going to be dependent on what we've done with our tasks. So as you can see, I have red selected right now. I know for me that red means inspection tasks. I'm also on my snapshot that's regarding the inspections as well. I'm not going to see any buyer or seller specific tasks on here. I'm going to see tasks that are specific to my inspection. So it's going to be all and any inspection ones. I can click on this tag right here and I can say, well, now I only want to see the ones that are inspections that are tagged buyer. Or maybe I want to drill it down even more and I want to say, now I only want to see the ones that are tagged inspections deadline and buyer and our red. So as we get more specific with our particular filtering, it's going to update this list for us. And if I throw something on there that's not meant to be on there, HOA tasks, it's going to update this task list and show us. As you can see, the tags, they're a lot more friendly than using anything else. When I update my tags, it's just saying, does it have it? Show it. When I update my color, however, and I say no color, if you can see, we changed from 5 to 56. And if I scroll through this list, now it's showing me anything that has with any color on these. And if it may or may not include these particular tags. So you can see this one is coordinate walkthrough with buyer. If we click on that particular task and I go down to tags, we can see that buyer has been tagged on here. And that's why that tag is showing up. That's why that particular task is showing up. If we change it back to that color again, it's going to update. And now we're only focused on the red inspection tasks. I'm going to go ahead and remove these tags because I don't need them there. I'll leave these two here. Oh, you can see if they're not tagged, that's great. This is a great way that is showing it. So buyer is something that's tagged on almost all of my tasks, because if they're buyer tasks, they need to get tagged that, but not all of them have inspection deadline or inspection task. That's so funny. But the idea is that you can use those tags, you can use the colors to filter it down even more. If it includes this, please show this. If it includes this, please show this. I'm going to create another filter. I'm just going to go to no filter and then say create snapshot. I'm going to say buyer under contract. When you're going through and you're creating your snapshots, we want to make sure, and I'm going to go ahead and, because that one looks like there was actually a filter on there. We want to make sure that the filters that we're using are going to be the ones that are going to be the most helpful for us. So if this is all the buyer under contract tasks that I need to complete, I'm going to go to my options and I'm going to update it. And I'm going to say, I only want to see the tasks that are gray, because I know that all of the gray tasks within my system are my buyer tasks. You can see the moment I chose that gray color, here it changed from 56 or 70, I think it was, to 37. Those are the 37 tasks that I need to complete. Now, most of you guys who are going to be using this with an open to close are not going to have them all like this. You guys are going to have them where they're set up in, your different columns, and they're going to be over here, and there might be due in 2 days or in 3 days, and so on and so forth, right? You're not going to have your 33 tasks past due. You shouldn't. Hopefully you don't. You can use the different types of teams to filter it down, or the users to filter it down. You can use the different types of client type to filter it down even more. You can use the different property statuses to filter it down even more. Let's say we just wanted to look at the under contract. Where are you? Under contract tasks. So this is going to show me only the properties that are marked as under contract. You can see there are none. Let me change this back to, let's see if we've got any under pending. Oh, pending. Here we go. So this is an example of when we have that. So when you're setting up your task snapshots, I want you to keep in mind that your filtering, your color coordination, your tagging, that stuff matters. That stuff is going to alter the way it looks. If I choose my buyer and then I say, I'm okay with seeing, main under contract or main under contract tasks, maybe post closing, as I update these, it's going to update these filters as well. Okay. Cool. I've added a new user, but is unable to receive email. How can I how can the user log into the account? Ah, I see. So if we've added in a user, we invited a new user into our system. Here we chose team member, we sent them an invite, and they have not received the email from us, right? Or they have not seen anything from us. What is the next step that they're going to take? Number one, check spam. That's what I would do. First thing that I would do. If I don't receive an email and it says that an email was sent, check the spam. The other thing is that when you send out that invite, I believe that there is a resend invite. I don't see it right now on this one because it says user has not activated their account. Usually that's what it says when they haven't logged in yet. So I believe there should be a resend user or resend invite, but I don't see it for the agent. It might be there for the team member. If you don't see it and they look in their spam and they don't find it in their spam, the next step that they're going to take is they're going to go over to open to close and they're going to go to login and they're going to say forget password. And they're going to enter in the email that you put in to say that that was the email that you needed to have the password reset. And they're going to say send reset password. Once they do that, they're going to receive another email from us. Again, hopefully it doesn't go to spam. And then they'll be able to reset their password and then they'll be able to log into their open to close account. If you guys are having issues even further than that, you say that we've already reset the password, Hannah, and we're still not getting the email. What's going on? I would then double check to make sure that that email is actually spelled correctly. That could be the other thing with it too. If the email is spelled incorrectly or you're missing something in it or it's missing a letter or maybe it just didn't get in there correctly, we're going to want to delete that user that's not activated. So if I go over to agents, this person hasn't activated their account. They're not ready yet. I'm going to go ahead and say delete them. There's nothing wrong with me deleting a user that's not active yet. They do not have an account with open to close. They did not create it. They're not connected to anything. They don't have any properties associated with them. They don't have any intake forms, nothing, right? They're just someone who was a shell waiting to be invited. Okay. Now, usually I see people when they invite their team members, they start to get really excited and they add their team members to their teams before getting them set up, right before they've activated their account. So you might need to remove them from a team, but hopefully you've gone through and you've made sure that, you haven't added them to a team yet. And if you have, you remove them from the team that they were added on, and then you were able to delete that particular contact. Cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. What happens if you need to switch over who's the owner of the account? So if we needed to change this, what happens? How do we handle this? The best way to handle this is by having basically if we needed to swap these two emails here, this is actually the email that needs to be associated with this person. We don't have the ability on the back end to just say, okay, well, this person's the admin now. Instead, what you need to do is you need to update this email address here, but you also need to update this email address here. So if you've identified that content team, this email address, Christina Patton, needs to get added as the community team member. They need to be added as the admin. You're going to log in as Christina, or you're log in as the content team member, and you're going to swap out their email address. So you're going to go over to your little person icon. You're going to go to profile. you're going to go to security, and you're going to change that email address for her. That is going to free up her email address. Okay. Whatever email address you use doesn't matter to me. It could be anyone. You just need a third email address that's not being used by open and close. Swap out that email. Once you swap it out, then you can log in as the community team member. And then you can change that community team member again, going to profile, going to security. Then you can change that community team member email here and swap that out for Christina's email, or for the content team member's email. Then you can head back, log back into content team member if you need to swap the two, right? And then you're going to put in this email underneath the content team member in the same place as before, profile, security, change out the email. So there's a bit of a manual process. You are going to need a third email to be able to make that switch. It's kind of like a placeholder email. I've talked about this before, but you guys can totally use something like what we use in our system. You can see here, this one says implementation demo at open and close, right? But the next one says literally my coworker's team name, and then it says plus content. I have another one, a team member's name plus implementation. I have another one, team member's name plus Kelly. I have another one, Jana plus Rory test. That plus and then adding on new verbiage allows you to create a kind of alias of your original email. It's something that I use when I'm like setting up my Hulu. So like I'll do Hannah at Hulu, or sorry, Hannah plus Hulu at gmail.com, right? I'll do it the same exact thing, Hannah plus Netflix at gmail.com. When we talk about email security, when we talk about trying to figure out where spam is coming from, okay, this is the cool part about having this little plus sign if you guys are starting to make these upgrades with your login users, is that when we add in things like this, if your email ever gets tugged by anything, it gets pulled and it it's like in a place where it shouldn't be, or someone is using it inappropriately, having the plus here, that'll let you know who sold your email for one, because when they sell it, they're going to sell it with that plus sign. So it's going to say Hulu sold your email, Netflix sold your email, right? So this is one thing that I use on the daily, like just myself. I use this for personal use. That way I can make sure, if my email ever gets compromised for whatever reason, and it says plus, and then it has a name after it, plus, I don't know, any subscription that I could use, Etsy plus Amazon plus Netflix, any of that, then I know, okay, well, something happened with them, and I'll most likely receive an email from them soon saying, hey, sorry, our database got looked at, or got cracked, and they took it. Anyone who plays video games knows that kind of happens a little too frequently on different PlayStation networks. But that's one way that you can use it to be able to create an alias that is still going to go to your same inbox. And it's little to no effort. You don't have to add it into Gmail to create it. I could create any version of it right now. I could put Hannah plus Kelly at opentoclose.com, and all of those emails are going to go directly into my inbox, but it'll have that plus Kelly on it.
There is one little caveat to that, though.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Free email accounts, though, the only way they can be free is by selling your email. So in that neat little terms and conditions that nobody reads, but everybody signs that they read it, it does say that on a free, especially with Gmail, on a free Gmail account or other ones that are free, that's how they subsidize themselves for that free email, is by
That's true.
selling. So, but if you have a paid account, that is totally, they should not be doing that.
Yeah. And for most of you guys who are Google Workspace users,
Yes.
I think that's like definitely something
That's
that
different.
Yeah, for sure.
Very
for
different.
sure. For sure. Awesome. I'm glad you shared that. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the type of information that's super helpful for anyone who's like an active user online. This is the type of stuff that you guys should know.
Especially realtors. That's where I figured it out. Oof.
Yeah. When you find out like that, it's rough. And that's why, I was using stuff like, PlayStation has been cracked a lot. They've been hacked quite a number of times. And unfortunately, numbers and credit cards and all that stuff gets leaked through that.
Not good.
It's really not good. No, it's really, really not good. But being able to be aware of those types of things and doing what you can to protect yourself in those moments, that's what's the crucial part. You gotta put in your fail safes. Cool. Alrighty, guys. Well, I don't have any other FAQs. If do we have any other questions that we want to go over? Any other parts of the system that we wanted to look at today? Cool. Alrighty, guys. Well, I'm gonna let you have 9 minutes back in your day. And we will chat next time. I hope that you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. I'll just talk about my end of call information that I usually go over. So if you guys are looking for more webinars like today's webinar, you can head to our Learn tab. You can go down to webinars and you'll see the webinars that we have active, Wednesday workshops here. Getting started is great for anyone who's brand new or they just want to, get an idea of what Open to Close is about. Come check out Getting Started. Below that, we have our on-demand webinars. These are going to be showing you how to use your system. So if you're a brand new user, you want to import your data, go to Imports 101. If you want to learn about how to build out the foundation of your account, this one's a great call for that. If you want to learn about how to get your content or work with your content within Open to Close, tasks, emails, triggers, come to this one. And if you want to learn about how to use our intake forms, bring everything together, tie it up into a nice package, come check out our intake forms webinar. It's a really great call for that. They're meant to be short. They're meant to be quick things that you go through and you kind of learn. Other than that, we have our support. You can go to our Learn tab. You can go to the help guides here. Within your Open to Close account, you're going to go to your person icon and you can go to Support Center here. It's going to open up that Support Center. And you can search for any topics that we talked about today. Tasks, FUB, Dotloop, MoveEasy, whatever you need to look up, we can look up here. Other than that, like I said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Stay cool. If you need to stay cool, stay warm. If you need to stay warm, make sure you're drinking water, go stretch, right? Take 5 minutes to just get up right now and do a stretch if you can, since I gave you back some time into your day. Take that time to take care of yourself. And I will see you guys next Wednesday.